It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you. It's haunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me. All these whispers.
My name is James Hershey. Right back.
All these shadows in my mind. With my reflections I can't find. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a
That ought to
ghost
do
of
it.
you and me. Of you and me. Don't let 'em take you away. Don't let 'em bring you down inside. It's just the mirrors in your mind. Don't let 'em bring you down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, Old Boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
On tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting and something that is pretty recent, actually. It's been going on for a long, long time, but there's been some new documents that were declassified. They pretty much prove exactly what a lot of us have been saying for a long, long time. Tonight's episode is going to be on MK Ultra and human-animal chimeras. Now, this is something that most people think of as a conspiracy theory, but it has now went from conspiracy theory to fact, because we have government documents now that have been declassified that prove that this is actually going on. First, let me explain a little bit about what each one of these is. MK Ultra is basically mind control. It is the CIA and other three-letter agencies that use electricity and various means of torture to control a person's mind, to make them do what they want them to do. The goal in the beginning, on paper at least, was to find a way to better interrogate prisoners, to get to the truth easier. And it has morphed from that into a whole other thing, to where they can literally, once somebody has been in the program and they've gone through the regiment of drug cocktails and electroshock and stuff like that, then they can actually activate them whenever they want and have them do whatever they're programmed to do. So in other words, if you wanted somebody to go in and shoot a place up or assassinate somebody or something like that, you would use one of these people that you've already pre-programmed, and you would just call them and activate them with a code word, and they would go and they would commit whatever thing they were supposed to commit and have really no control over themselves and no memory of it. So that's what MK Ultra is. The human-animal chimeras, that is essentially where you take bits of DNA from different animals and you inject them into human beings to create like a super soldier. Basically, that was the idea the government had. This is one that was really on the far fringes of conspiracy theory for quite a long time. But like me, myself, I've talked about this multiple times on multiple different shows. Because this is absolutely true and it's absolutely happening. But this is one that nobody ever believes. And we now, with this new declassification, we actually have proof that this was being done. The example that is in this batch of documents is that the government was trying to take the DNA from like electric eels and different fish that were able to create electricity and use those to create super soldiers that could actually shoot electricity out of their body. It sounds far-fetched and insane, but as you will see as we go forward, it's 100% true. The documents are there to prove it. So what I want to do first is I want to start with an article that will kind of lend some credibility to this whole tale. It's been reported on by the Sun website, which is a part of the Sun paper over there in the UK in England. And the title is Spy Secrets: Truth About CIA's Illegal MKUltra Mind Control Experiments Using Drugs, Hypnosis, and Electronic Devices Revealed in Sensational New Documents Officials Hid for Decades. The records rewrite the history of the CIA's covert and illegal MKUltra project, according to researcher John Greenwald, Jr., who spent almost 20 years trying to obtain the documents. And this article was written by Emma Perry, who is the digital U.S. correspondent for The Sun, and it was published on December 7th, 2018, and they updated it on the same day, like about 5 hours later. And it says, disturbing details of secret mind control experiments carried out by the CIA have been revealed in newly released documents that officials have been trying to hide for decades. The new documents, released under the Freedom of Information Act, reveal how the CIA experimented on both humans and animals, using drugs, hypnosis, and electronic devices as part of the top secret and illegal mind control project MKUltra. The CIA carried out a covert program of mind control experiments during the 50s and the 60s. Shockingly, the swaths of information still missing or redacted in the records could mean that the CIA is still carrying out the experiments to this day, according to experts. One document details how the CIA planned to drug criminals awaiting trial held in a prison hospital ward, in a bid to develop improved techniques in drug interrogation. Another document details the CIA's interest in developing ways to cause amnesia in humans, using experiments, no matter how weird, inconclusive, or unusual. And that's a direct quote from the documents. It goes on to detail how they were looking to find ways of developing hypnotic speaking techniques which would control the minds of large audiences and heighten group acceptability. Now I'm going to pause here for a minute. Notice this. They wanted to find ways of developing hypnotic speaking techniques which would control the minds of large audiences. That would be something that would be perfect to do on the news programs, wouldn't it? Develop a way that you can speak and the words to use where you can control large amounts of people that are watching you and cause them to believe or to do what you want them to do. I'm going to go back to the article now. Experiments which were too dangerous, too shocking, too unusual for routine testing would be of interest to us. The memo from 1956 reads, the records also detail mind control experiments on dogs, cats, and mice with a cocktail of drugs and by implanting electronic devices, most likely as a precursor to human experiments. They also researched electric fish who can zap each other with electricity in a bid to create a super soldier who could do the same thing. The records were obtained by researcher John Greenwald Jr., who published them last week on his website, The Black Vault. John, 37, from Castaic, California, told The Sun Online he has been fighting since 1999 to get the CIA to hand over the documents and says they completely rewrite the history of the controversial project. John said, quote, are the CIA still trying to cover up projects that took place in the 50s and the 60s? In my opinion, yes. They are trying to cover it up, and that is evidenced not just by what I went through to get the documents, but the documents themselves. So you'll see through these records they were doing a lot of different types of research with drugs on cats and dogs and other animals. They were implanting electronic devices into animals to see whether electronic impulses can essentially control the brain. If you control and master that type of technology with cats and dogs, you're very close to doing that with humans. And so this is kind of a very interesting look into the beginning days of that research. There's also one document that specifically breaks down multiple project proposals, but the majority of project names on the document are redacted. That means that whatever these projects were, they won't even tell you the name of the project, let alone what they were doing. It shows that the entire story is not yet out, which is contrary to what the CIA wants us to believe. MKUltra was the code name for a top-secret and illegal program of human experiments, which the CIA carried out in the early 50s until it was officially halted in 1973. The aim of the project was to identify and develop mind control drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in a bid to force confessions and control behavior. Although the CIA admitted to running the covert operation during congressional hearings in the 70s, they claimed that all the records relating to it had been destroyed. John's battle for information started in 1999, when he requested the only documents relating to the MKUltra that the CIA said had not been destroyed: 30,000 pages of financial records. The CIA finally provided John with the 30,000 pages on CD-ROM in 2004, which they claimed were a full and complete set of records related to the project. The CIA even produced a detailed 100-page report on electric fishes, in a bid to create humans who could generate electricity. It wasn't until 2016 that a fellow researcher released a staggering 4,358 pages, which the CIA claimed were on the CD. But they were actually missing, and John began his fight to have the missing records released. Although the CIA initially claimed John was wrong and fought him hard, he finally received 2 separate boxes of records in the past month. But most worrying, John says, is that there is still at least 1,245 pages missing, which could contain even more disturbing details. He believes the missing information may relate to top-secret mind control projects which are still taking place. The possibilities behind the redacted information are honestly endless. We don't know what's underneath this classified material, John said. We've known for many years that MKUltra related material was destroyed. But if you look at these documents, you realize that there was a lot going on outside of MKUltra. Still drug, mind control, and manipulation related. You begin to realize that MKUltra may ultimately just be the tip of the iceberg. If we know X, what the heck is redacted under Y? We can't know for sure, but it's certainly scary to think about. They are redacting this information because it's absolutely a threat to national security to tell us. Could that threat be that they are still doing this research to this day? Yes, possibly. It makes sense. We know that the United States government does things that go beyond the law, that go beyond the norm of what was approved. Edward Snowden has proven that phone tapping goes on, which obviously is a little bit different than mind control. But historically, these intelligence agencies have been proven to be able to get away with a lot that goes against the law. So absolutely the CIA could be continuing this type of research decades later. When you look at the records, you realize that they were making huge accomplishments with this research. If all this stuff was declassified, with not a whole lot of redactions, and just failure after failure, then there's probably a chance that they indeed canceled funding to the program. But when you read these materials, you realize they were actually making leaps and strides. I'm sure that they are using what they found in the 50s and the 60s and beyond probably today. John, who has made over 9,000 Freedom of Information requests and posted over 2 million pages of documents online since 1996, believes the CIA went out of their way to prevent him from obtaining the documents and has letters and written evidence that prove they lied and misled him over the past 20 years. He's now determined to obtain the missing documents. There's been multiple times that they just kept giving me bad information, and a lot of times in writing where they're telling me one thing that isn't necessarily true, he said. If there were just one instance of a frustrating moment, we can put it down to a mistake, human error. But if you count up everything that they put me through to get these documents, that would be ridiculous. And you can only talk it up to the fact that they are not telling me the truth. There's really no other way around it. But my fight is still going on for the missing documents, or trying to get the CIA to say where those 1,245 pages went. So that's the article. First thing, redacted. For those that don't know, redacted is where they take a word or a phrase, sometimes a whole paragraph, and sometimes even more. I've seen declassified documents where everything was redacted on the page except for the date. Like they would have the date that they released the classified information at the top of the page, and everything else on the whole page is blacked out. So essentially all it is it's just a big black line completely blocking out the text so you don't know what it says. That's what redacted is. Another thing that was very interesting that I pointed out during the article was the idea of using a particular way of speaking and a certain presentation in order to control large audiences. For those that know what Operation Mockingbird is, that will come as no great surprise to you. For those that do not know, Operation Mockingbird was a CIA program in which they took control of the major media in America. And every morning at 4 a.m., they send out talking points to the media companies. And that is what the news people will talk about that day. You can find this to be true by simply looking it up. The documents are out there to see that prove the existence of Operation Mockingbird. They prove what I'm saying is true. But also, if you just type in to YouTube something about all the news saying the same thing or something like that, you can pull up video after video where literally they will go through a day's newscast and over and over again, all these different newscasters from local all the way up to national media are saying the exact same thing. Not just the same news stories, but the exact same words, exact same phrases, everything. Exactly the same. And that's because of Operation Mockingbird. So that part really stood out for me because I can correlate that with other things that I know to be true. Also on the human-animal chimera thing, that's extremely interesting to me because we know that has taken place. That has been admitted to in congressional testimony. We know that that's true. Even before this declassification, we knew that was true. But that is the one that almost nobody ever believes. That is the one that whenever you talk about it, people think you are out of your damn mind. Because it just sounds like science fiction. It sounds like something that could not possibly be true. But we know that it is. We know that our government is capable of genetic manipulation. We know that they are capable of taking genetic code from animals and inserting it into human beings to give human beings different abilities. That is documented. It sounds nuts, but it's documented. Now, the reason I bring that up is because think about this for a minute. In the last decades, couple decades, we have seen a crazy amount of sightings of different kinds of creatures. Now, some of these creatures come from lore, and some of these creatures are things that are completely different that we've never even seen before or heard of. I wonder if that might be tied in here somehow. I wonder if some of these things that people are reporting seeing out there are actually experiments by the government. They are things that were once human and now they are something different because of genetic manipulations. We know that the government can do it. We know that they are doing it. So that kind of makes sense to me. That's logical. Also, this is not simply a United States thing. Okay, don't believe that for a second. This took place in the 50s and the 60s where these documents came from. This is still going on today. And the stuff that is going on today and that they're able to do now is so much more advanced than what they did in the 50s. In the 50s, they were learning how to do mind control on people. They were learning how to cause them to not remember the whole interrogation session. That research later led to being able to program people to do what they wanted and them not remembering the whole process of the programming. Okay, that's where that amnesia part ties in. The part about the programming, that ties in here with when they're talking about using electricity to control the behavior of animals. That research later led to work on humans to where they could actually control human beings. And I will tell you that took place in 1988 when they were actually able to make that breakthrough to where they could control human beings and cause us to forget that we were ever run through this process in the first place. They like to do this with people that are having mental issues that have to go in for psychiatric care. A lot of times it's inpatient stuff. They do it also with people that are suffering from PTSD. They have to go in for their treatments, and this gets done to them sometimes. Not all the time. So not every person with mental illness, not every person with PTSD has to worry about this. But some it will happen to, that the government has pre-chosen to be the person they want to carry this out. There's a lot of talk that maybe Sirhan had this done to him, the one that killed RFK, because he had no memory of killing RFK afterwards. He had no idea what he was even doing. You know, he was there, and then all of a sudden RFK was dead, and he's standing there, and he didn't know what happened. I mean, that was his testimony at least. Now, he might be lying, but he might not be. I don't know. But 1988 was when they made that jump from animals to humans. That's when they were able to do that. And they have a 71% average success rate at being able to mind control human beings. Like I said before, this program is still going on. Although now it is not being run completely out of the United States, but it's going offshore. Okay, so it's being run offshore, not domestically, so that there's deniability there. That's how they're handling that. The funding is done covertly through other things. You ever wonder why they pay $500 for a hammer, $1,000 for a saw, that kind of thing? That's why, because it funds black projects that the government does. Now, I know this sounds like something out of a movie, basically. It sounds like complete and utter fiction, and it sounds absolutely insane. To any normal person that has not studied this stuff, who does not have a background in it, I'm sure that you're probably sitting there thinking right now, this is nuts. But all I can tell you is look it up, and you will see for yourself that it's true. These documents have been declassified. They do exist. You can read them for yourself. You know, you can go to thesun.com. I think it's thesun.co.uk, I believe, is the URL for the website. And you can actually check for yourself and read the article for yourself. It's right there. So this isn't like National Enquirer kind of stuff. This is being reported on by a lot of different places. And this is something that is absolutely provable, absolutely documented, and you can completely find it for yourself and see that I'm not lying to you. So with that being said, I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and get his opinion on this.
Thank you, brother. I've heard a little bit about this, like remote viewing and stuff like. It's kind of similar to that too. And thank you, because I don't know too much about this. I've heard a lot about it. Like, there's movies about this where they would like get people to do certain thing. I think there's like a movie. I forget what I don't remember the name of it. It's about a guy that was like they trained him to be a killer, but he forgot who he was, and then like something would snap, or he would see these people, like it was like the CIA or something, and they would come after him, and he would snap. So he would kill all these people. Or it was a girl. I'm sorry, it was a girl, and they were doing all these experiments, and she was like a weapon, a superhuman, and she like seen these people, and she'd kill them all of them. So there's been a couple movies like that. And then like Universal Soldier, you guys remember that with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren? They made these super soldiers, and they could take a lot of punishment. They could take bullets and stuff like that and shoot them, and they would just regenerate their bodies. They made them like that with bulletproof, and I think they used some kind of reptilian, some kind of they were doing something with it. I think it was some kind of steroid from a cow or something. I forget what it was, but I remember that movie, and they were like super soldiers, and they were doing all kinds of experiments and stuff like that. And I know in Russia, they tried to make superhuman, I think they were trying to mix ape and humans together and make it like a superhuman soldier army, because you were talking about how they were doing the genetics with animals and humans. And I remember they were trying to make a super race. Stalin did. I remember some of this stuff when I was a kid, because I used to get fascinated by it. And he used to try to make a super race. I think the Germans were trying to do that too. And I know the Germans were doing a lot of things back in the World War I and II, kind of like trying to make superhumans out of dead tissue, like Frankenstein. And they were doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Remember that movie Hellboy? That was about that. They were doing certain experiments with black magic and all kinds of other stuff, but they were trying to mix make superhuman creatures out of that, or beings. Sorry, not creatures, but like humans. So that's been going on for a long time. That the mixing of that to try to get us where like they want to, like if you cut off an arm, and this is how I explain it to you guys. You cut off an arm, it doesn't grow back. Well, a reptilian, they cut their tail off, it grows back. They can regenerate their body. I know that we were trying to do something with that where humans would be able to grow their arms back, like amputees, like their legs or their arms or the limbs or something like that. I know that we were doing stuff like that. I remember reading stuff about that because they were interested in doing that. I mean, I know it's an excuse for them to make some superhuman persons, with that can disappear, like the Predator. You guys remember the Predator movie? It's kind of like that. They want to have those powers, like invisibility. You can't be tracked, stuff like that. He's also an alien, but it has all this special stuff. But something like that, it can be like can disappear. It not really disappear, but it can blend in like camouflage, like the Predator, and that stuff like that. And you could climb like not like a regular human. Human can't really. You can climb, but it takes forever. You can climb right up the tree. It's like that. There's another movie with it was a comedy about that guy who would he had special powers with all the animals. He could climb up trees, and it was the guy from Deuce Bigelow. I forget what his name is, but I remember that movie too. And it was a comedy, but it was the same pretty much thing. They had these powers that the animals could do. And that's some stuff they've been doing because they want to use it in war. Because think about it. If you're in war and most soldiers get hungry and get tired. Well, if you have a super genetic where you don't fall asleep and you're not hungry and you don't have to eat but every other day, like once a week instead of every day, or a couple, you can miss dinner once or twice. In the war, you missed a day or two, you'd be all right. But you could go 2 or 3 weeks without eating, even 4, not even sleeping. You can't do that. If you don't sleep, you're going to die. Or if you're thirsty, you can drink water like a camel. They can do something with a camel where they take it where you could suck up all the water, and you don't have to worry about it for another year or 6 months. You wouldn't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about somebody who doesn't have to sleep. If you have to sleep, you have to worry about that person who's not sleeping going to kill you and cut your head off or throat, whatever. Sorry, don't mean to get graphic. Sorry, cut you while you're sleeping dead. You will have a bloody death because you're sleeping and they're not. It would make sense. But I do agree with some of the stuff that they do with the genetics thing. Now the whole mind thing, I believe that's where I wanted to get into. He was talking about that with the media, and it's kind of true because almost every media channel except 1 or 2 they all say the same thing. And I don't want to get in what they talk about. We don't need to go there because we all know what's going on right now in the world, and it's constantly with just 1 or 2 people. But they say the same things, and then people believe it. Well, the easiest way to make people listen to what you want them to hear is you tell them by the news. See, most people don't get this. News is entertainment. They've been sued numerous times for not telling the truth, but they get away with it because they put the word entertainment. Not all news is real. The National Enquirer is fake. Everybody knows that. But people still believe some of this stuff. Like, oh, my dad was Bigfoot. Or I married Elvis Presley. Or I seen aliens in my macaroni salad. Or a ghost talks to me at night. Or, that's ridiculous. But there's people who believe this because once you keep pushing something in their head, and this is just the example of what I'm saying, you can get them to do what you want. And they don't even know they're doing it. They'll forget, like James said, with the guy killed the president or shot the president, he didn't remember what he did. Well, he claims that could also be a lie too, but there's a lot of people who say they forget what they do. And I've seen like videos on YouTube, like people will be talking, all of a sudden they just go into a trance. And they say that the government does that. They have these videos, and I watched this on YouTube. See, James, I will agree with, this is something I did. There's these videos they make, and it's either with subliminal messaging. That's how they do it, and they can control your mind. I've seen it, and I did this video, and I read it on, we read it on YouTube, and we watched it, me and my friend, and it said it makes you sick, and you could see like things and bad images and stuff, and it really did, and it started messing with my head. And I'll tell you this is the only time this has ever happened. I never told this story. I watched that video, and for a couple days I did not feel right. It was weird. It was like I got things in my head that I would never think of in my whole entire life, but it worked. And I think that's true. I believe that you can be told to do something and you can't stop it because it's just gets in your mind. And I think that's what the government does do. And I've heard it. There's movies like that where they can get you to get mind control, and they can have you go out and do something. And that would be the easiest way if you want to get somebody. I want you to kill all these people, and does it, and then they wake up. What the hell happened? No one's going to believe you. They're gonna, well, he killed everybody. He's crazy. Throw him in jail. Death penalty, whatever. You're gone. You're caught. But they got away with what they wanted to do. And see, a lot of people don't get it. They get away with a lot of things they don't want you to know, and they get away with it because they keep telling you crap. So the propaganda, whatever they want you to know, they'll tell you. And I probably shouldn't be talking about this, me or him, because they'll listen to us. But they want you to live a certain way. They want you to believe a certain way. And if you don't go by those beliefs, then they'll make you either look like you're crazy, they'll have you shunned, or they'll set you up in some way. They either get killed or go to jail. And that's why I don't want to go too much into that because, like I said, I don't need something happening because it could. And that's the funny thing is it's not really that funny. But if you want to get a lot of people to do something, that's the way you do it. You get into their minds. Video games, they can do it that way. They can do it online. They can get you to believe something that's not even true. Say that me and James and about 20 other people saw the moon fall down to the earth. Well, they'll get 20 more people and make them look at another video and make it look like it didn't happen, even though it did, and they'll believe it didn't happen. Somebody can come up and Bigfoot can come to your house and dance with you right out front. Say everybody saw it, but they'll make sure that people don't know the truth. They'll twist it around. They'll make it look different, and people will believe it because the news is not going to lie to us because the government told us this. A lot of people, we have our opinions of the government, but this is what they do. They've always done it. They want to get you some way or somehow, or they want something. It don't matter what government. I'm not talking about just ours. I'm talking about all together. This is how they do it. And it's not just them. It's just with everything. People with power learned how to do this years ago. I think hundreds of years ago, maybe even thousands. They get people to believe a certain way, even if, no, it's not true. And this guy's a dastardly person. They find a way to brainwash you. Because then they didn't have TVs. What they would do is use newspaper then. The same thing, but just people would go out there and people, didn't know any better. If you lived out in a log cabin in Tennessee and your neighbor's 5 miles away, if you read something in the paper, you're going to believe it, even though most of it's probably not true. That's a lot of things in life are like that. A lot of things are not true. It's not what you seem. Things can be set up. We have so many great movies out there and stuff like that. I can make something look like it really happened, and people would believe it because you pay a lot of people around you and dress them up like something happened, and you pay them enough, people will believe it anyway. It doesn't matter because, oh, look, there's cops around. You don't even know what really happened. That's with a lot of things. People really don't know what goes on. They just hear. They read it in the paper. They see it in the news, and they believe it. It may not even be true. It's just something they use to brainwash you. And I've always known they've done that. There's no hiding that. That there's no arguing. I'm not even. James is 100% right on this one. And that's what I'm going to say with the mind thing. That happens. I know it happens. I've read articles. I've seen stuff. The genetic thing with the humans and the animals. That's true too. It may sound as crazy as like James was saying earlier, but it's true. They were doing stuff like that because they want to make a superhuman for war. That's what the end game is, and majority of this people. And then they also want people not to have cancer and grow cells back. But the majority of this was all for war, and that's why you see creatures, because people were doing weird experiments with different and with animals and other animals, not just humans. So that's where you get into that too. With like the lager. The lager exists. Go look it up. They made the lager. It's real. The thing's huge. It's the biggest cat in the world. It's huge. They've done it by genetic gene pooling and all that stuff. They've done it. So why wouldn't they do something like that? Like you said, monsters and stuff like that. Some of this stuff is probably stuff we made. It's probably true. We made some of these creatures. Now, the Bigfoot, I don't believe that. I think that's just something different. But I think some of these creatures people see, like the dog man, there's a possibility that's something man-made, government. Some people are going to argue with me that it could be a werewolf. There's a chance on that too. Could be something else, a whole difference. But there's a chance that's probably true, just like the lizard man, the goat man, stuff like that. But that's been happening for 2,000 years. Even before that, they said there's creatures like the Minotaur and what else? What else was half man, half the Cyclops? That was something too. There's a couple things that were supposed to be like half man, half lizard. Medusa was half lizard, half she was cursed, but she was like snake and human. And then they had like the Griffins was half lion, half eagle. They had all kinds of weird creatures back then in Greek mythology. So that's what I got to say. I agree with what James says on this. This is one thing I 100%, probably 99 to 100% totally agree with James on this. I actually glad he talked about this because I didn't think this is what was going to be. And I was like, oh, wow, this is true. He's so right. Everything he's saying is true. I've read this up for my life throughout my life. They've been doing this forever. They've been brainwashing you and making creatures and people superhumans. They've been trying to do that forever, to get on the moon, to have people not breathe in space that long, or say somebody needs to go in the ocean, like Waterworld. He had gills. They could put gills on somebody, so no one doesn't have to. They don't have to worry about breathing underwater anymore. It's simple like that, guys. That's the truth. You don't need water. If I can put a part of the animal that can keep water in their body longer and put it in a human, then I don't have to worry about water. But it comes down to it's going to be in war, because then you have superhumans that don't need to sleep, eat, drink, and they just kill. So that's the perfect weapon. Why wouldn't anybody do it? Any government would do that. So I totally agree with this, James. I actually like that you brought this whole story up. I actually enjoy it. But thank you, brother. There you go, on my opinion.
Let's spend a little bit of this remaining time breaking this down logically. That's something I like to do on these shows when we have something that sounds as fantastic and unbelievable as what I've said tonight. On the subject of human-animal chimeras, genetic manipulation. Well, let's break that down and let's really look at that. We know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a lot of our food that is grown on the big factory farms is genetically modified. They have genetically modified it so that it contains weed killer like Roundup, so that insects can't eat on it. They have genetically modified it so that you have to continue to buy the seed so that the seed won't germinate again. You have to buy more. So we know that's true. Monsanto has done that. Other companies have done that. We know that is true. That is genetic manipulation of plants. We also know that on the factory farms, they have genetically modified chickens so that the breast of the chicken is way larger than it's supposed to be. The reason for that is because the breast is the most popular part of the chicken. That's what people like to eat the most. So they make them gigantic now. So big, in fact, that in a lot of these factory farms, the chickens can't walk around and do things like they normally would because they're too top heavy, they just fall over. So they spend the majority of their time just standing on concrete in one spot, just being fed, because they can't even move around. So we know that is true. It's been proven. It's on videotape. You can watch multiple documentaries where they talk about it. We also know that they tried to genetically modify a goat to cause it to have spider proteins in its milk. The reason they did this was so that they could create the equivalent of spider silk from goat's milk, because spider silk has one of the highest tensile strengths of any material. The application they were going for in this would be not only a lot better ropes and stuff like that, but they also wanted to be able to weave it together to make armor, basically, to make like bulletproof clothing and vests and stuff like that. That would be way better than what we have now. We know that is true. It's been in scientific journals. It's been in documentaries. We know that that has happened. That is also genetic manipulation. Do you guys remember Dolly the sheep? Dolly was the first animal supposedly ever cloned. Happened way back, I think, in the 80s or early 90s, somewhere in that time frame. Once again, you're talking genetic manipulation. They created a clone sheep that was a direct genetic match for the sheep they based it on. Also, 100% happened. Also, genetic manipulation. So we have so many different examples of this happening. So it's not like it's science fiction. It's not like this is totally an unbelievable thing. We have so many different examples in mainstream culture where we know that this has happened. So the idea that you might have in your mind is this can't be true. You can't do that. It's impossible. It's not impossible. They've done it multiple times. We know it's true. The interesting thing here is who's doing it and why are they doing it. The majority of it, like Old Boy was saying, is for war, because they're wanting to create soldiers that have advantages over other soldiers. Now, they're not going to be using these soldiers on the front lines in combat. You know, it's not like you're going to have a whole platoon of wolfmen lined up to go against the Russians or something. That's just not going to happen, because they want to keep it on the down low. So what you have is, if they're using these things in battles, they will be used in covert operations. Kind of like what the SEALs do, where they send you somewhere, you go in there, you kill whoever you're supposed to kill, you blow up whatever you're supposed to blow up, you get the hell out of Dodge. Nobody ever knew you were there. That's the kind of thing these things will be used for. So we know that we have all these different examples, and now we know through declassified documents that this has taken place. Now, we in the United States do a whole hell of a lot of things well. We are very good at being inventive. We come up with brilliant ideas and brilliant inventions. We also come up with some crazy and silly ones. But we do not exist in a vacuum. Whatever our scientists are working on, the scientists in other countries are also working on. You can bet your bottom dollar that if we have genetically modified soldiers, Russia also has genetically modified soldiers. And I would say that China probably definitely has genetically modified soldiers. Any country that has the scientific capability and the finances to be able to fund that research, and has a good enough intelligence agencies that they can spy and they can learn what we're doing and steal it from us, are going to have it as well. And it works in reverse as well. If they come up with something, we're going to steal it too. That's the way it works. At the end of World War II, they had those Nuremberg trials. Remember those? Where all these top Nazis were sentenced to death and all this stuff. But did you notice you didn't see a whole lot of the scientists and people like that in those trials? You saw a few. But the majority of their scientists came to us. We took most of those Nazis in America, and we used those scientists to come up with all kinds of stuff for us. That's kind of the way this works worldwide. Okay, so if we're doing it, guaranteed Russia's doing it, almost a guarantee that China's doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if other countries such as Israel probably has some kind of program going like this, I would imagine as well. They have good financing, they have good scientists. Germany, we kind of kept our foot on Germany for quite a while, but Germany's kind of had a free run for a while, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're not working on something. Because whenever those Germans get together, you got to worry. You know, I'm not saying Germans are crazy. I lived in Germany. I grew up in Germany. I'm not saying they're crazy by any means. Okay, don't take me wrong, because I do not believe that the Germans are crazy. But I will tell you one thing about the Germans. You're not going to find better engineers or better scientists anywhere in the world than you will find in Germany. Proof of that is just looking at their cars. You know, the Volkswagen is one of the greatest vehicles ever made. As far as versatility, as far as what you can do with it, as far as how easy it is to fix, that's an amazing vehicle. That's German engineering. They are really, really good at it. So, if anybody in the world could come up with stuff like this, I would put my money on Germany in a heartbeat. Or at least be able to see what we're doing and copy it. Because they are really, really good at engineering, and they're really, really good at science. So, I would say there's multiple countries in the world that probably have programs exactly like this. And I would say the same thing for the MK Ultra program as well. Because our intelligence agencies here in America work with intelligence agencies in other countries. We work with the Australians, we work with the Israelis, we work with England, we work with a lot of different countries like that are our allies. And we share back and forth. And we use each other to get around all those pesky laws that we are always passing. Such as you can't spy on your own people. Like the CIA is not supposed to be able to spy on the American people. It's against the law. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, we're not allowed to do this, so England, send one of your guys from MI6 to spy on this guy. And then we'll spy on somebody for you in your country so you don't get in trouble. See, they work together like that. That's how it works. It's all really, really shady stuff, but they're spies. What do you expect? But we are coming to a point, not only in our country of America, but also in the entire world, I believe. We're coming to a time of great awakening here, where the blinders are going to be taken off. That illusion that everybody had of what the world was like has already begun to crumble. You're already seeing the man behind the curtain a little bit. And I think that's going to continue. I think we're looking at worldwide change coming soon. I think that we are going to learn about a lot of things that we never knew existed. And a lot of it, unfortunately, and I'm just going to be honest with you here, a lot of it is going to be heartbreaking. A lot of it is going to be very, very vile things that we learn that our leaders have been up to. And this is not just here, guys. This is everywhere in the world. Every one of your countries are up to some shady stuff. And I'm not talking about just spying. I'm talking about stuff that I can't even mention on this episode. Because if I even talk about some of the stuff, I will be booted. I won't have a show anymore. I won't have a channel anymore. I'll be gone. I might not even have a life anymore, to be honest with you. So, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but all I'm going to say is within the next couple of years, just remember I said this. And remember when all these crazy things start happening, that this is what we're all going to be going through. So just take a breath. There's nothing you can do to change what's already happened. We just have to make a better way forward. We have to make sure that those horrible things never happen again. So with that being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy so that he can do his shout-outs, and then we'll wrap up.
And thank you, brother, for another great episode. This was a really good one. I enjoyed it. It's because it's something different again. That's what's different about our show. We do everything different. We don't do the same show over and over. I want to thank everybody for over 5,000 subscribers on James Hershey's YouTube page. Remember, keep subscribing. We're over 5,000. Over 800,000 views of content on our page, too. Now we hit over 800,000 people have viewed altogether. I want to thank you guys. Remember, we have a merchandise store. He'll tell you about that. I want to thank all our listeners from ParaX, YouTube, whatever you listen to us on. There's a whole bunch of other channels, too, that listen to us all over the world. 37, 38 countries now. I think it is 38, 39, something. But they know about us everywhere. Now, we're getting out there, guys, and I'm glad. So we're the best kept secret, I think, in the world. But people are starting to find out who our show is, and I love our fans, man. Without you guys, we would be nowhere. We'd be doing this by ourselves. And I want to thank you guys. And it's a new year, 2019. So I hope everybody has a great night, a great week. Blessed be, misfits, sugar ladies, demon lovers, monster hunters. I love you. Good night. Sleep tight.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Please go there, subscribe to the channel like Old Boy was saying, and check out the content. There's a whole lot of cool stuff there. We put every episode of Staring Into the Abyss the day after it airs, or sometimes the day after it airs, depending on what's going on. I live up in the mountains, so sometimes in the wintertime we get snow and power gets knocked out, and there's nothing I can do. I just have no internet. But it's usually there within a day or two of when it airs all over the world. You can watch it on the YouTube channel. Also, we do other side videos on the YouTube channel that have to do with the subject matter that we're talking about on the show. So, like, for example, we did an episode on haunted dolls, which was a really cool episode. And I did multiple little side videos on different haunted dolls and their story. We do things like that as well. So that's all on the channel there for you to watch. Also on the channel, we have a new TV show that we've started doing. We've got 2 episodes done already. It's called Tales from the Abyss, and that's on the channel as well. So you can go there and you can watch completely free the first 2 episodes of our TV show. I'm in the process of editing episode 3 right now, and then that'll be up on the channel as well for you to check out. We have the team with Old Boy on the West Coast, and then I have a team here on the East Coast that I work with. So you have some in California, some here on the East Coast in Virginia, and in surrounding areas around here. So that's a really cool show. It's a lot of fun to make. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And one thing about Tales from the Abyss that's really special is it's 100% real. The reason Tales from the Abyss came about was because doing Staring, we talk about our experiences sometimes. When we're talking about a particular subject, if we have experience with that creature, then we will tell of our experiences of times we've run into it, when we've been on investigations and we've seen it and that kind of thing. And I thought, why don't we start filming this stuff and make a show out of it and put it on the channel? Instead of just talking about it on the radio, let's actually film it so that our audience that listens to the radio show can actually see us doing what we're saying we're doing. That way they get a better view of who we are and what we do. So that's where the little seed of an idea came from for Tales from the Abyss. And it's kind of grown from there to where now we've got producers from like the TLC and Discovery and History, those kind of channels that are watching it and trying to decide if they're going to air it and where they're going to air it and all that kind of stuff. So we're in that process, which is a whole mess, to be honest with you. But it's exciting at the same time. So it might turn out to be something really, really big one day, where we might actually be flying around the world to all these different locations and going to the scariest places in the world where nobody else will go. And me and Old Boy will go there and deal with whatever's there and investigate it and try to, if it's something we can kill or get rid of, we'll try to do that. And because one thing about us is we'll go anywhere, we'll do anything. We don't cower in fear. We don't run away. We stand and we fight and we face whatever it is. So I think that would make a brilliant show. We'll see if it works out that way. Right now, it is us filming our own investigations that we do. Like I said, we have a team on the East Coast and a team on the West Coast. We do cases with both teams. Right now on the East Coast, we have dozens of cases working, and Old Boy's always working on cases out there as well. So there's a whole lot of stuff to film, a whole lot of stuff for you guys to check out. Like I said, right now 2 are done. I'm getting ready to air episode 3 here soon as I get done with the editing. And then we'll have that up on the channel. So please check that out. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's Teespring, TEESPRING.com/stores with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That is the merch store. On that site, you can find all our merchandise. There's shirts, hoodies, posters, iPhone cases, pillows, towels, all kinds of stuff there. So if you're somebody that's into merch and you want merchandise, that's where you can go to get it. The reason we made the store is because we had a lot of listeners that wanted merchandise, and they kept asking me about it and asking me about it and asking me about it. And so I said, well, hold on, I'll find out. I'll figure out a way to do this for you. So I started looking into it, and that's where the store came from. So if you want the merch, it's there for you. It's good quality stuff, and it's decent prices. So definitely check that out. And last thing I'll say to you is just thank you. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for listening. Thank you for checking out the channel. It really helps us a great deal, and it means a whole lot. This show is not just something to do for us. This is a real labor of love. We really love what we do. We love the paranormal. We love all these hidden mysteries of the world. We love investigating these things. We do it in real life. We actually do go on hunts and we go on investigations, and we try to track these things down for real. And staring was just an extension of that. The show came about because we just wanted to talk about the stuff that we do and share our knowledge and our wisdom with everybody else, and try to get to the bottom of some of the questions we still had. There's a whole lot of research that goes into these shows, and I think it really shows when you watch it. So thank you again for watching the videos. Thank you for listening to the show. I love you guys very, very much. And until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.